And we're live.
Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves and corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening.
3, 2, 1.
Now live from the Devil Radio Studios in Madison, Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning. Welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Here is your host, Mike Crute.
Welcome to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Dominic, it is a whopper of a Wednesday edition, but we have a nation and mini crisis. We are a nation without a Speaker of the House.
Oh, I've been able to sleep at night. I don't know about you. Good to see you, Crudy. Nate, working the board. Thank you, sir, our fair audience. Happy hump day to us all.
Dominic, we've got a fine guest joining us in the Happy Hour, 5:30 today. James Causey, coming over from the Journal Sentinel. And I don't know if you've seen the ads, but there is a dark money group putting up some misleading ads that are anti-CRT, critical race theory, Dom. So James Causey is going to have some comment on the reporting I found at the Journal Sentinel today. He's joining us at 5:30, so looking forward to that, Dom. But I want to start with the speaker race. You know, it's a race. And Kevin McCarthy's over on the sideline saying, I'm still here. I'm still here. Apparently, Kevin McCarthy would like to let you know that he's waiting in the wings, just in case.
Yes.
But we have this Steve Scalise character, and I didn't think, because of the active treatment for cancer, I didn't think he would be considered a candidate. You know, perhaps some health concerns might not be up to the job. In fact, Marjorie Taylor Greene said, I ain't voting for him. He's got cancer. MTG, that's your girl. Anyways.
Yes.
But I would say, despite his health condition, I find him truly despicable, Dom. And I find this a very Faustian contrast between what? Scalise, who is a self-described David Duke without the baggage. And then there's the other guy. The other guy's Jim Jordan. And I think it's fair to describe him as perhaps Denny Hassert without the baggage.
Oh my! This is the best that the Republicans in the House have to offer: a David Duke light and a Denny Hastert light.
Well, and they've still got Kevin McCarthy, the only speaker in the history of the House ever to have been fired. So by a small margin, apparently Scalise won the caucus today, the caucus vote, but he hasn't won the speakership. He's not the Speaker of the House yet, because you got to win.
The caucus vote, 113 to 99 behind a closed door conference meeting.
That is a slim enough margin, and I've already seen some statements out there, Dom, you know, like, I'm not voting for Steve Scalise. That's Chip Roy's latest. They haven't taken a vote because they don't have the votes. If they had the votes, they'd have taken the vote. That's
for the full House to vote. Because, of course, the Democrats are all going to vote for Hakeem Jeffries.
Well, why would we vote for either of those terrible candidates? That's a terrible choice.
Any chance like a couple of moderates come over and vote for Jeffries?
Dominic, I just want to bring up, just in case you or anyone would question why I would say this about Steve Scalise, David Duke without the baggage, because that's what he said about himself, according to this reporting. I found it over at The Guardian. Steve Scalise, the Louisiana Republican who some in his party reportedly want to elect as Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives after the stunning and historic removal of Kevin McCarthy, was once reported to have called himself David Duke without the baggage. Now, Duke, if you're unaware, is the former Grand Wizard of the Knights of the Ku Klux Klan, an avowed white supremacist who ran for Louisiana governor, the U.S. House and Senate, and for president, and who in 2003 was sentenced to 15 months in jail for mail and tax fraud. Which baggage? Is it the mail and the tax fraud baggage?
Right. There's so much baggage, perhaps he should articulate, specify for us.
Dominic Scalise, now 57, was elected to Congress in 2008. He became Republican House Whip in 2014 and was elected Majority Leader in 2022 as a hardline conservative acceptable to the far right of his party, which is now successfully rebelled against McCarthy. And ahead of McCarthy's removal, Scalise implored his fellow Republicans to keep doing this work that we were sent here to do, rather than focus on ejecting the Speaker. This isn't the time to slow the process down, said Scalise, denying interest in the speakership. Well, that didn't take long. Apparently,
if called, I will answer.
Dom, but the speakership may offer Scalise a tempting prize. If he is elevated into the role, he will become the highest-ranking member of Congress ever to come from the state of Louisiana. And Politico's Olivia Beavers reported last Tuesday that Scalise had started to reach out to House members ahead of launching his bid for the speakership. He's getting good support already. Oh, is he? Now, I want to get back to the David Duke part because that's the more interesting part to me, Dom. Duke, Scalise's fellow Louisianan, last made national headlines when he supported Donald Trump for president in 2016. Support Trump was slow to disavow.
There's a shocker.
He claimed he didn't know who David Duke was at the moment, right? Even though he had publicly taken pictures and talked to the guy and whatever. But, Trump, it all fades from memory. But 2 years before that, Steve Scalise ran into controversy, and his remarks about Duke surfaced after a blogger revealed Scalise's attendance, wait for it, Dom, at a white supremacist concert, no music, just a conference, organized by David Duke in 2002. So Scalise actually went to a white supremacist conference organized by David Duke. And Scalise, whose district includes a large suburban area of New Orleans that Duke once represented in Louisiana state legislature, said he had been seeking support for legislation that focused on cutting wasteful state spending, eliminating government corruption, and stopping rate hikes, and wholeheartedly condemned the views of the group concerned. He, being Scalise, said attending the conference was a mistake I regret, as he emphatically opposed the divisive racial and religious views that the groups like these hold. He's a Catholic, Dom. A little bit more here. I'm jumping around a bit. Duke, however, told the Washington Post, Scalise would communicate a lot with my campaign manager, Kenny Knight. That's why he was invited and why he would come. Kenny knew Scalise. Scalise knew Kenny. They were friendly. And Dom, that wasn't the end of it. The controversy deepened when Stephanie Grace, a Louisiana politics reporter and columnist, told the New York Times that at the start of Scalise's legislative career, while explaining his politics, he told her he was like David Duke without the baggage. Now, Dom, Grace said she thought Scalise had meant he supported the same policy ideas as David Duke, but he wasn't David Duke, and that he didn't have the same feelings about certain people as David Duke did. But he did go to the white supremacist conference, not a concert.
Wow.
Anyways,
I'll jump in here.
That's out there.
Scalise did not comment on Grace's remarks, but Chuck Keckley, the Republican Speaker of the Louisiana State House at the time, told the paper comparisons between Scalise and the Klan leader were not fair to Steve at all. Nonetheless, the Duke controversy has followed Scalise throughout his career in Republican leadership, which has seen him surviving being seriously wounded in a mass shooting in 2017, become one of 5 Louisiana Congress members to vote against certifying some election results hours after the deadly Capitol attack of January 6th, and become majority leader in 2002. In August of this year, announced a cancer diagnosis, as mentioned. David Duke. I'm like David Duke without the baggage. And how? But you went to the white supremacist conference because you were looking for what? Shared ideas about keeping tax rates low? Really? That's what brings everybody together at the white supremacist conference? Tax policy? Come on, man. I've been to lots of concerts in my life and a few conferences. I've never stumbled in to a bar or a hotel conference room where there's a white nationalist conference going on and thought, hell, I'm going to stick around and hang out and see what's happening. Maybe we have some like ideas.
How hard can that be? Saying that Nazis are bad.
Nazis are bad. Come on, Steve Scalise. Oh, and this guy, this is who the Republicans have elevated to the top of their party. Barely.
Well, I did also publish on the Devil's Advocates Facebook page a little coverage of the former Ohio State wrestlers saying that, Jim Jordan is not really fit to be the Speaker of the House either. So you've got the David Duke without the baggage, and as I like to think of him, Denny Hassert without the baggage, ?
David Duke light, Denny Hastert light. At least they're, moving away from the sexual abuse and terrible racism. KKK, really? Steve Scalise, you agree on tax policy, though, right?
Dominic, I was listening to Righty Whitey Talk Radio earlier today here in Madison. Your girl, Vicky, down the dial, she had a guest, Tom Tiffany, congressman from the state of Wisconsin. Now, he's an avowed Jim Jordan guy. He was quick to tell Vicky. And wasn't real clear that he was ready to jump on the Scalise bandwagon, Dom. But here's the question. Why didn't they have a vote? If they got the votes, and I mean, Scalise is literally the whip. It's his job to go find the votes.
Right.
But if they had the votes, why don't we have a Speaker of the House? They cannot proceed. There is nothing happening.
Because the same folks that want to burn it all down are going to demand a pound of flesh. I mean, how is Steve Scalise going to be in any different of a situation than Kevin McCarthy was?
Well, he hasn't yet been expelled for the first time in history as Speaker of the House.
There's not
precedent set, Dom. Now there's a roadmap. Come back with us. We got a roadmap to greatness right here on the radio dial. You could be a part. 844-967-2789. And Dom, there's someone famous coming to Waukesha County. A brush with greatness. We've mentioned this to each other before we came on the air, but I'm curious. Who would you go out to a Costco to see? How famous do they have to be for you to go to Costco? Come back. More Devil's Advocates.
Shame, shame, shame.
Devil's Advocates can be the voice of your business, hold special events at your location, interview your staff for satisfied customers to lift your business. Contact us today, Crute at darnwy.com. That's Crute at darnwy.com.
Weather in a Moment is brought to you by Chad's Design Build, building a better world one remodeled home at a time. Reach out today by going to chadsdesignbuild.com to learn more. Again, that's chadsdesignbuild.com.
Don't let biased algorithms or degree screens or exclusive professional networks or stereotypes, don't let anything keep you from discovering the half of the workforce who are stars. Workers skilled through alternative routes rather than a bachelor's degree. It's time to tear the paper ceiling and see the stars beyond it. Find out how you can make stars part of your talent strategy at tearthepaperceiling.org. Brought to you by Opportunity at Work and the Ad Council.
Here's your Mad Radio forecast. A frost advisory begins at 1 a.m. early tomorrow morning and continues until 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. Partly cloudy this afternoon with daytime highs approaching 58. Winds out of the northwest 8 to 15 miles an hour. Clear skies tonight, lows dip down to about 36. Mainly clear skies tomorrow, high of 60.
I don't know if you know the Devil's Advocates, but the show is kind of a big deal.
And we are back from the 420 break. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Happy Hump Day. You can join us on the lines at 844-967-2789.
Dominic, did you see the Game of Thrones dude? Jason Momoa. And he also did Aquaman. He's famous for being sort of big and hunky. You know, strapping lad like myself.
Yeah.
Dom, he's coming out to Waukesha County, my understanding. And I bet there will be lines at the Costco. He's going to Costco. And then he's also going to a liquor store. And you'll probably like the rationale, the reason. He's promoting his vodka, Dom. So there's alcohol involved. So that's
all right. All right.
Now, I would ask, and I've got some serious politicking to talk with you as well, but got to ask you, man, who would you go see at the Costco? Have you ever had a brush with greatness? Have you ever gone and seen someone you were starstruck by?
I'm not. See, that's the thing. I'm not a starstrucker. You know what I mean? And I'm not great at like remembering actors and actresses and musicians necessarily. You know, one time I was in Metro Detroit in Rochester, and they had a big outdoor mall kind of place, like Macy's or Hudson's or something. And I saw a bunch of Kiss fans walking around, and I asked, one of the people working, what's going on? And to my surprise, Kiss had released, or perhaps some members of Kiss, their new cologne. So a lot of the Kiss Army was out, gonna get some of that new cologne. I did not stick around to see the new cologne or smell the new cologne.
You couldn't cross a Macy's store to go check out Kiss?
It wasn't like happening yet, and I was walking through, man. No, man, no.
Here's the other.
I've seen Kiss in concert a couple of times. Mildly entertaining. I appreciate the throwback from growing up and whatnot, but no, I'm okay, man. I don't need to do that.
What did they smell like? Was it a pleasant smell? Did you like the Kiss cologne?
I did not sample the cologne, and the folks, the Kiss Army that was there, they were not.
Where's your curiosity, man? You don't even know what Kiss cologne smells like?
No,
that's a once in a lifetime.
Did you even know Kiss made a cologne, Crudy? I mean, you probably go find some, man. Are you a Kiss Army man? Are you all about Kiss, rock and roll all night, party every day?
I like
Rock City.
I like Kiss as much as I like most rock bands, but here's the question I would ask. How did you know they were Kiss fans? Was it the face paint? Were they full?
It was all the Kiss patches, the jackets, the jean jackets, the shirts. I mean, it was obvious it was Kiss Army, man.
I forget what grade it was, like 6th grade, but one year for Halloween, maybe it was. I went as one of the Kiss guys, the guy with the stars. Is that Ace Frehley?
Ace Frehley? Yeah.
I forget who's got the stars, but I went as a Kiss guy for Halloween, and we ended up playing like hockey that day in gym class, and I just remembered it was my greatest hockey day ever. But maybe it was the face, maybe people didn't want to get
Stanley had the star. He was Star Child. He was the Star Child.
Well, that day I was a star of the floor hockey gymnasium hockey game.
Tiny star.
I scored like 3 goals that day. It still sticks in my memory. I was like the Al Bundy of the middle school floor hockey game.
You're the Al Bundy of the fill in the blank, Crudy. Come on.
Here's what I would say. When you grow up as a Wisconsin kid, and there were kids in my neighborhood that were like on the Russian junior national team. And there's a Swedish kid, best little goalie I'd ever seen in my life. But I mean, there were damn good hockey players growing up in Madison when I was a kid. You know, Madison, the Badger hockey team were usually challenging for a national championship. And what I would say is when you grow up in a hockey society, even though I don't skate well, but you go down south, you play hockey in like North Carolina. I got to tell you, I was the Wayne Gretzky of North Carolina. That's
Yeah.
that Halloween day, that or the Paul Stanley, you know. But I do hope that you are willing to come out for a brush with greatness with us, the Devil's Advocates. We're going to be at the Jade Monkey next Tuesday. That party's coming up soon. We're doing a live show 4 to 6 p.m. The Jade Monkey, Cottage Grove Road, Madison, Wisconsin. It's the new one, newly remodeled, bigger, still cool. And we're going to do a live broadcast. And we've already got a confirmation. I know how we're starting the show. Retiring Dane County Executive Joe Parisi, our friend. He's locked in, Dom. He'll be there from the top.
Nice.
And I know we've got some, well, many invitees. I've got many political invitees. Unfortunately, Mark Pocan's not going to be in the district, but I think I'm going to go out and see Mark in D.C. very, very soon.
Oh,
So anyways,
excellent.
booking ahead, Dom. I've been doing a little work off to you.
Yeah. Look at that.
It's
Working
the only
hard
work
for
I
you.
do. So you, the audience, come party with us, the super cool stars, air quotes, of the Devil's Advocates radio show. And, stick around for the party at the Jade Monkey.
Maybe I need to release some Devil's Advocates tequila. I mean, I'm not a big vodka fan. I mean, it's fine. You mix it with whatever, but I'm more of a tequila guy, as you
Maybe,
know.
maybe
we
it
need to
should
come
be
out with
Devil's Spicy Rum.
Ooh, I know you like your rum.
I would still wonder, not you so much, Tom, but who would you leave the house to go see? Like at a Costco. Jason Momoa. You going to Brookfield to see Momoa, and I have the information, perhaps for a few of our female friends. The Melly Vodka Revolution Tour will make a stop at Costco. That's 15300 West Grange Ave in New Berlin. He's going to be there 10 to 11:30 a.m. And the Total Wine and More at 17300 West Blue Mound Road in Brookfield from 2:30 right up till the start of
Oh
the
man, we
Devil's
got a
Advocate
Total
show
Wine
at
over
4.
here in Glendale. Man, you should come over there. And why the women, man? I bet there's a big chunk of guys that think Jason Momoa is the bomb.
Why? Because he was Aquaman, or because he was in Game of Thrones?
Because not everyone's heterosexual, and some men might find him very attractive. He's like me, but taller.
And better looking. And more muscular. And I suspect has more money. But you are a star, Dom.
Some bright, shiny star.
In your own mind. Come back with us. Be a star of the Devil's Advocate Show. Call us 844-967-2789.
heard me say don't call the sign?
All of them?
You called the agent working for the seller, and once you see the property with that agent, I'm no longer free to write an offer on it.
So...
You need to hire us from the beginning, help you find the right home, negotiate on your behalf, and protect your interests all the way through the process, and it shouldn't cost you a dime.
Solidarity Realty. They're real, they're solid, and they're honest. Find them at solidarityrealty.com.
Your smile says a lot about you. It can give you confidence and give great first impressions. At West University Family Dentistry, Dr. Thacker and his staff will help ensure your oral health is in top shape because oral health affects your overall health. Join them October 19th from 2 till 5 p.m. for an Invisalign open house. Find out details about the process and have your questions answered. Call West University Family Dentistry at 608-238-6244, 608-238-6244, or log on westuniversityfamilydentistry.com.
RPG came through the belly of the aircraft. We don't talk about the female combat wounded. These are our daughters and our sisters and our mothers. Wounded Warrior Project came into my life and taught me how to stand back up and get back in the fight. The truth is, I think we all have this strength inside of us, but until you're tested, you just don't know it's there.
See how Wounded Warrior Project empowers women veterans like Beth by visiting woundedwarriorproject.org/empowerwomenvets.
Missed your favorite show live on air? It's easy to find what you enjoy wherever you listen to podcasts, including Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts. And we're always streaming on TuneIn and the Civic Media app.
I drink, and I know things.
The Devil's Advocates, because freedom!
Devil's Advocates Radio Show, a whopper of a Wednesday edition. I assure you, James Causey joining us in the Happier Happy Hour about an hour from now. You can join us right now, though, 844-967-2789. That's the phone line. It's also the text line. A couple of texters. There's also a Kiss perfume. I did not know. And the guy with the star is Paul Stanley. I think Dom looked that one up for me.
But the other guy, Ace Frehley, also has like star-ish. He's like space star guy or something. So, but Paul Stanley does have the dark black star in his eye. That was specifically Paul. The other one's got kind of an outline of stars across his eyes.
Well, it wasn't so much the face paint. It was probably the metallic silver coat that made me a target of ostracization. Easy for me to say. Ridicule, let's just say. Beating up and thank goodness I was good with the floor hockey stick. A little bit more here. Lisa Joe says, so excited for the Jade Monkey Party.
Oh, yeah.
I'm bringing the green thing, she says. And Jeff from Sherwood, well, he's got a boozy idea. Captain Crudy Spice Rum. I'm in.
Captain Crudy. I don't, again, not being a big, fanboy type of guy, but I would see, I guess I would go see, if he was around, Ozzy Osbourne, man. I can't think of a guy who's had more of a musical influence on me than the ex-Sabbath frontman. And
he's the Prince of Darkness.
The Prince of Darkness. I mean, Ozzy's just great. But he's getting old these days, man.
But, I mean, you do what? Like if he showed up at a Costco hawking vodka, you'd go buy some vodka and hang out with the dude?
Maybe if I could hang out a little bit, sure. But I never watched, I never saw the Osbournes, the reality TV thing. I just never into that kind of thing. So, what about you, man? Who would you go? Why would you drop everything to go to Costco on a Saturday when they're giving out the samples? You know what I mean? That's like the worst time to go to Costco. Who would you go see?
Pretty close, but I can tell you the one guy, and he's sort of a local hero, Andy North, 2-time U.S. Open winner. Golf guy. I was sort of a golfing kid. My mom was a good golfer, and I was a golf fan as a kid. And he was like at the bank of Sun Prairie, opening up the bank. He got like an autographed picture of Andy North, and I think I've told the story. I think I got a Spider-Man radio that night as well.
Ooh.
And they probably got my $10 and all the accumulated interest. I don't think I ever went back for my money. It was many, many years ago, but I'd be up to like $11 by now, Dom.
Ooh.
So Andy North, I guess Andy North is the guy that I remember going to see. But, politically, I've dragged you all over the country politically to go see some of the headliners. We've seen Trump, we've seen Hillary, we've seen Bernie a number of times. We've seen them all, Dom.
Yeah.
Obama, we've seen Biden. Who haven't we seen, really, Dom? Ted Cruz?
No, we've seen Ted Cruz, unfortunately, up close and personal.
Scott Walker, he was a shining star of
haven't
sorts.
met Steve Scalise or Jim Jordan. The leaders of the Republicans in the House have not met those fine gentlemen yet.
Thankfully. Well, they're not speaker yet. And there's not even a scheduled vote. So until the Republicans have a speaker, they can just sit in their corner and continue to be in disarray, Dom.
Disarray.
As a party in disarray. Folks, we're the Devil's Advocates. Party next Tuesday. Join us. It will not be in disarray. Not till the very, very wee hours, perhaps. But, Dom, I wanted to turn our attention towards one of Wisconsin's own congressional delegates. I saw a threefer at the Raw Story today.
A threefer?
Aggregator. The Raw Story. It's one of my favorite sources. So I go there often, and I saw not one, not two, but three Wisconsin stories side by side. And usually it only makes the Raw Story if you've done something bad.
Right.
Like Congressman, tantrum thrower, Derek Van Orden from the third.
God, such an
He's done it again, Dom.
Of course, he cannot help himself.
Here is the headline at the Raw Story. Found this one today. Tantrum-prone GOPer hits Jewish rep with F-bombs during an Israeli intelligence briefing. According to this reporting, Dom, Axios reporter Andrew Solander posted Wednesday that Republican rep Derek Van Orden, Wisconsin's, well, he's not even from here.
Yeah, but he
represents the third, but he's not really from here.
If you could call it that, if your representation isn't, pretty much yelling at everybody and swearing at people, belittling people, yeah, that's Derek Van Orden for you.
Well, Dom, he kind of lost his cool during an intelligence briefing to House members on Israel. And Van Orden, who has a history of irate outbursts, including one directed at high school teenage pages, was, and here's a quote, Dom, acting belligerent towards the intelligence staff that worked under President Joe Biden's administration.
No.
Multiple officials in the room said that he cursed at the briefers and called the presentation pathetic. Other members booed at his attacks, one calling it offensive and inappropriate. And then here's a quote, Dom, from the reporting at Politico. Rep. Dean Phillips, Democrat from Minnesota, shouted, "Shame on you," in response to Van Orden's verbal affront, prompting Van Orden to drop an F-bomb towards the Minnesota Democrat. Oh, yeah, by the way, he's Jewish, Dom. He was rude and attacked the presenters. I thought they had very substantive things to say. But he just had this blanket attack saying, "This is the worst information I've ever had," according to Rep. Judy Chu, a Democrat from California, and basically attacking them for being incompetent. Now, after the most recent of Van Orden's many temper tantrums, Dom, Rep. Jason Crow, Democrat from Colorado, stepped in to apologize for Van Orden's behavior. During the House Democrats meeting Wednesday, the members discussed the matter and positively identified that it was Van Orden. And after Van Orden screamed at Senate pages in July, Senate leaders in both parties chastised him for his profanity-laced tirade. He then played the victim, saying that he was being threatened with bad press after his outburst.
Threatened with bad press? Really? Maybe you shouldn't do the outbursts and people won't have to report it. And if you think it's bad, well, maybe you should change your behavior.
Dominic, after the prior incident, because let's not forget there's a new Van Orden incident, a Wisconsin newspaper editorial called for his ousting while detailing a pattern of rage by the Republican official. I think that was the Cap Times. I'll verify. The Republican congressman from Wisconsin's 3rd District is no stranger, delighting in controversy over his questionable judgment and outbursts. In one culture warrior moment, he allegedly ripped into a young library helper angry over a book display on gay topics. And then there was his presence in the crowd at the U.S. Capitol on January 6th. Though Van Orden has said he did not enter the building, adults should know better, the editorial continues, particularly adults who put themselves forward as leaders in a national forum. As for Van Orden's clumsy attempt to justify his own bad behavior by blaming it on the kids, that says a lot more about him than it does about the teenagers. If he felt the kids should get up, surely he could have found a more acceptable way to express himself. No, mostly F-bombs, Dom.
That was from the Beloit Daily News, and he'd have gotten away with it, too, if it weren't for those meddling kids.
844-967-2789. You know, there's a PolitiFact about Van Orden's participation in the January 6th. We'll get to that, perhaps. But first, to the phones. To the lines. Bill from Oconomowoc. How you doing, fella?
Hey, Bill.
Oh, just great. Keep it up, guys. You do a wonderful job. First, I'd like to make a statement. You know, the Republicans that Van Orden, Ron Johnson, Jim Jordan, all of them, this is the best they got, and their number one guy, who's leading by margins, has got 91 felonies. What's the worst they've got? You want to know what the worst is.
Well, I'm going to put Derek Van Orden up. I'm nominating Van Orden. He may be amongst the worst, right. Bill.
Now, would he be one of those guys they hide in Blazing Saddles? Remember when they hired the worst people they could find in the world? Would these guys qualify? Could they have been in Blazing Saddles? Last but not least, I'm really curious. You have really done a golden job getting the word out, creating civic media. How many listeners do you think you reach all over the state?
123,000 and counting, Bill.
Billions. Really? Billions and billions and billions.
Nielsen's most recent statewide said about 123,000 listeners, Bill.
Oh, wonderful. Well, I hope next month it's double that. You do a wonderful job. Keep it up. Have a great day.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you. Appreciate
it. That's not just Crute conjecture either. That's Nielsen.
I assume there's many more than that, but what do I know? 844-967-2789.
I'm not sure if we get credit for the worldwide audience and the, people in space as well, Dom. Space station. They got us on right now. 844-967-2789. Mark from the SAC. Welcome back, Mark. What do you got?
Hey, Mark.
Yeah, let's remember that Gymnasium Jim Jordan also accused that 10-year-old that got raped there in Ohio, accused her of being a liar. And then never really apologized for it. Said, well, there's that they're prosecuting the guy that raped her, but never accused the guy. Never apologized for calling that child a liar. The rapist.
Yeah, that's a great point, Mark. I totally forgot about that. I mean, you look back because the terrible things that this man has said and has done. It just stacks up, and it's hard for me to keep track of. He's just a big POS, Mark. I can't believe this guy's literally representing 700,000 people in the state of Wisconsin.
Ohio. Jim Jordan. Is a guy who.
Oh, I'm talking about Van Orden, but yes, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, but Van Orden too. That these guys are nothing but POSs. There's a whole. And we got Lauren Boebert now who's going to oppose Scalise. Lauren Boebert, the Denver Fondler. It just.
You're happy with yourself, Mark. You got that one out there, the Denver Fondler. He's been waiting all day to use that line on us. Well done, sir. I got a couple from the text line, Dom. People, brushes with stardom. Robert Brooks partnered in a furniture store. I went to the opening. Well, that kind of counts. I played softball and flag football against Billy Schrader, former Packer player. Does that count? He was a college guy. We went to yeah, but he wasn't famous then. Here's one. I'd even go to see Wanker or Voss at a Costco so I could give him the finger.
A lot of work.
Read on Reddit. Somebody bumped into Scott Walker at the Packer game in Las Vegas, and they walked up to him and they said, Scott Walker, and got his visual attention. and then gave him the old F you. And apparently Walker dropped his visual gaze down to his feet and walked away. I mean, I hope the what is it? The Young Adolph's Foundation. I hope they
The
pay
Young
him well.
America's Foundation.
Oh, I
yes,
keep getting
yes.
that wrong.
That's tough. I get it.
I hope they pay him well, so he can build a wall around his house and avoid all the people he used to quote unquote serve here in the state of Wisconsin.
Serve.
Because he's not well regarded. His policies weren't so popular outside of right-wing talk radio land. Anyways.
Yeah, but you got
hope
paid.
you enjoyed the game, Scott.
Nice cushy job with the Young America's Foundation in charge of motivating and organizing and enlightening the youth of America.
Here's another
conservative
one.
Ways.
Andrew from Verona Texan. Again, Van Orden, he's probably just back on the juice. Crudy, here's an accusatory text. Crudy, your Van Orden and Trump impressions sound suspiciously similar to each other. Well, one's just angrier. You decide which one. Anything else? No, that's good for now. We'll come back. We'll do more of your phone calls, 844-967-2789. And a PolitiFact on Derek Van Orden's participation in the January 6th. I got to tell you, PolitiFact, I'm quite disappointed in your rating of mostly false insurrectionist. I think it's mostly true. Come back, more Devils.
Shame, shame. Know your name.
Damn it.
Malarkey. Malarkey. The devil's advocates invented malarkey.
And we're back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Join us on the lines at 844-967-2789. I love me some Benny Hill, man. That House of Republicans, it seems like the Benny Hill show.
Hey, Dom, my understanding is Robin Voss calling a press conference for 9:30 tomorrow morning.
Oh, really?
What do you think he wants to talk about?
They
had a meeting of the Republican caucus today. And here's Crudy's theory. If they're going to do it, they're going to do it tomorrow morning at 9:30. Either
they're going to impeach Wisconsin Supreme Court Justice Janet Protasewicz, it's going to happen tomorrow, says Crudy.
Or at least the announcement will be made by Robin Voss. And here's how he's going to play it. I've had a meeting of the caucus. And while we have been advised by We now know the third Wisconsin Supreme Court Justice, John Wilcox, is the third unknown conservative justice, in addition to Patience Rogensack and David Prosser. Now, we knew publicly, David Prosser said, don't do it. And actually, there's some reporting today that John Wilcox also said, don't do it. And I publicly speculated yesterday that my down the bar recent dining person, Patience, she said, go ahead if you want to. I suspect.
Maybe the Republicans got one Supreme Court justice to say, yes, go ahead and impeach Protosewicz.
Well, it's not even really a panel. They're just some people. He's just asking questions. But here's my point.
Okay,
here's the cover fire. If it's gonna go down, Robin Vos is gonna play it like this. The will of my caucus demands that we put this to a vote. And he could even vote against it. He could even say, well, I'm not even for it, but the will of my caucus demands it, because they've got a 2/3 majority over on the assembly side, right? They'd only need half the votes. They give up like 15 assembly people, don't even have to vote for it, and they could still effectively sideline Protosewicz. Senate never takes it up, never have to take an uncomfortable vote on the Senate side. And effectively, she's sidelined potentially for the redistricting cases going forward.
My
It's going to happen 9:30 tomorrow morning. He'll tell the plan.
Now, you're saying if it's going to happen, it's going to happen tomorrow. And do you believe
the plan will be laid out?
Yes. And you think
it will be blamed on the will of the caucus?
They're going forward. You think the Republicans are going forward with an impeachment of Justice Protosewicz? That's your call right now? We'll find out 9:30, but hell, man, we're on the radio. We got to make some calls here. Is that your statement? Is that your bet? If you're taking action,
I would probably turn down that action because I'm $40 in the hole right now and I can't afford to lose anymore. No, I'm not clear that I would take that action, but I don't have the darkened soul of Robin Vos. He's a different human being. Just because I don't find it politically logical to take this step. But I mean, effectively, if he thinks he can preserve his speakership, if he thinks he can preserve the permanent majority of the legislative Republicans, and all it's going to do is, cost a little grief in a lawsuit paid for by the taxpayers, not Robin Vos. No, I will take that action.
844-967-2789. Let's get to some of the callers. Greg from McFarland, you are next. Welcome, Greg. What do you got for us today?
Yeah, I'm just interested. We got two people vying for the third most powerful position to be president, and they can't even recognize who the current president is, at least verbally.
You're right.
Well, it was rigged. Stolen, Greg. Don't you know it? Didn't both? I mean, Jim Jordan is right at the center of the insurrectionist plot against the peaceful transfer of power. And my understanding is
to answer a subpoena from Congress.
I'm still waiting for Jim Jordan to be criminally indicted. I think it could happen. I'm not sure why. Thank you for your call, Greg. But if the special counsel, if Jack Smith really, really wants to get to all of it, what about all these congressional participants?
Yes.
What about the guy that wore the bulletproof vest under his yellow jacket? He's there chewing gum and kicking ass, and he was all out of bubble gum. I think there are plenty of Republicans that may have some literal blood on their hand, or certainly criminal complicitness. And I think at least one of them allegedly could be Jim Jordan, who apparently knows his caucus has spoken. He's going to vote for Scalise.
But are the rest of the hateful eight going to vote for Scalise?
Well, Chip Roy is not going to vote for Scalise. He has stated publicly, and the more time they get to go back to their offices and stew them, I don't think the math's going to get any better for this Republican Party that is completely in disarray. And I mean, understand, Scalise, as we described him, self-describes as David Duke without the baggage.
And which baggage is that? Was that be the tax violations or the Grand Master of the Ku Klux Klan or his tax policy?
I guess we'll never know.
Maybe we will know. We should know. How does this not, like, if this guy comes up, becomes speaker, how is this not the conversation? I mean, he's got to be bludgeoned with this. Are you kidding me? Hey, I'm just like the Grand Wizard of the KKK without the baggage. How is that a positive in any way, shape, or form? Certainly amongst white nationalists, that might be something they're all about. But as far as the general population, no. Most people want everyone to be treated fairly and equitably.
Like Dahmer, without all the baggage.
You know what I mean? I mean, you could go on and on and on. I mean, and I'm not clear you don't have the baggage. Now, maybe you didn't have the title as Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan, but you went to the White Nationalist Conference in 2002 looking for like-minded people on policy, apparently. That's where you thought you'd dip your toe in and figure out if you can really get a sense of the needs and wants of your constituents. Wow, man.
You're talking about Scalise, not our buddy Derek Van Orden, right?
No, correct.
Because Derek Van Orden did reportedly attend the Capitol insurrection, use campaign funds from his unsuccessful campaign, because before he won, he lost a run for Congress, had some campaign funds, used that to go out there. And now the FEC, the Federal Elections Commission, didn't have a big issue because it was only like $4,000.
Is it like $4,500? Wasn't enough money?
Well, how much does air travel to DC cost? I mean, I got a hotel room and airfare for a couple of grand. If I use campaign money, wouldn't I be in violation? And ultimately, the PolitiFact Wisconsin says it's mostly false when candidate Rebecca Cook, she's running as a Democrat for that office, says that Derek Van Orden wanted to burn it down. Well, perhaps he didn't want to burn it down, but he'd swear it down. I don't know, man. I don't really feel like this guy is anything less than an insurrectionist. He just didn't maybe literally commit any violence at the Capitol that day.
But he was there.
Must have been sober that day.
I doubt it.
Come back. Hour 2 of the Devil's Advocates. James Causey at 5:30. Your calls could be next. 844-96-PARTY.
Find out what's going on in the world, the state, and in your own backyard. This is a Civic Media Network News Update.
It's 5 o'clock. Good afternoon. I'm Nate Wuggyhout, and here's what Wisconsin needs to know. Quick Trip convenience stores are having some technical difficulties. A company spokesperson says it's causing problems with its loyalty program, product shortages, and sale pricing. Customers are complaining on social media that they can't access the app or log into the website. The phones are also down. Quick Trip says it's working on the problem and is asking customers to be patient. We now know the names of all three former Wisconsin Supreme Court justices asked to investigate the possible impeachment of Janet Protasiewicz. Pete Schwaba reports.
They are Patience Rogensack, John Wilcox, and David Prosser. Those names are in a court filing made by Assembly Speaker Robin Vos, who convened the advisory panel. Last Friday, Prosser sent Vos an email discouraging the Republican speaker from trying to impeach the liberal justice. Protasewicz is set to hear a case on Wisconsin's legislative maps next month. Pete Schwaba, Civic Media News.
The Associated Press is now reporting that Wilcox is also advising Voss against pursuing impeachment. Meanwhile, Governor Evers and Attorney General Josh Kaul are filing a motion to intervene in the lawsuit challenging Wisconsin's legislative maps. The state Supreme Court will hear arguments next month. In a statement, Evers and Kaul call Wisconsin's districts gerrymandered and unconstitutional. Wisconsin Congressman Derek Van Orden is drawing attention again for another profane outburst. Terry Bell reports.
This time, Politico reports the 3rd District Republican interrupted a White House briefing on the terrorist attack in Israel. One person who was there says Van Orden shouted and swore at the briefers. Another person says Van Orden's display was, quote, offensive and inappropriate. Van Orden's office did not respond right away for a comment. Van Orden made news for losing his temper at a group of Senate pages in Washington last summer. 2 years ago, he shouted at a teenage library staffer in Prairie du Chien over a gay pride display. Terry Bell, Civic Media News.
The state assembly is set to vote on a slate of bills that would limit the rights of transgender Wisconsinites tomorrow. 2 of the bills would dictate who can and cannot compete in girls and women's sports. Another would ban gender-affirming care for minors. The 3 bills passed through committee along party lines earlier this week. Governor Evers has vowed to veto the bills if they make it to his desk. Someone in Milwaukee County has the measles. It's Milwaukee's first confirmed case since 2011. The county health department says the person took necessary precautions after they started showing symptoms. Health officials are working to track down and notify everyone who may have been exposed to the virus. And that's what Wisconsin needs to know. I'm Nate Wiggyhout, and this is Civic Media News.
Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves and corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening.
3, 2, 1.
Now live from the Devil Radio Studios in Madison, Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning. Welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Here is your host, Mike Crute.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show, a whopper of a Wednesday edition, rolling into the happier happy hour, Dom. And we'll be happy when we have a fine guest join us at 5:30. He is James Causey from the Journal Sentinel, and he's here to talk about, or will be soon, to talk about dark money, funding, misleading anti-critical race theory ads that are playing out here in the state of Wisconsin. Who's paying for them? We don't frickin' know.
And why not? Why don't we know? Why if you're going to pay for it, stand up and say it, right?
I don't know. We'll ask James Causey when he joins us at 5:30. But back to the House Speaker race. There's been no vote, but there's been a caucus vote. And if you missed the big news, here in the state of Wisconsin, the Assembly Caucus apparently has met. Robin Vos has announced a press conference, 9:30 tomorrow morning. I'm willing to bet a little more than even money that it's some malfeasance he plans on rolling out tomorrow morning.
No, he's not going to announce his retirement, apologize for the gerrymandering, and just, walk away to run the popcorn kingdom.
I think it's far more likely that Robin Vos will claim the will of his caucus forces him to take up the matter of the impeachment of Janet Protasewicz, and they can bleed some votes, but they could still sideline Justice Protasewicz, despite the advice of the choker, Prosser, and also John Wilcox, who apparently, former Wisconsin Supreme Court Justice, they're both apparently advising against the move.
Well, as was
but
Louis
I'm
Butler,
still betting Rogan
Janine
Sachs for it.
Jeske, appointed by Tommy Thompson. So that's 4 Supreme Court justices who said, no, don't do it so far. And the only one we don't know about yet is your pal, Pat Rogensack.
Well, if you polled Gableman and a few others, I'm sure you could find a few more willing to go along with it, Dom.
He didn't ask Gableman. Gableman's an embarrassment to the state of Wisconsin. Isn't that what Speaker Vos said about him after he hired him, paid him millions, and fired him? Or cost us millions, then fired him?
Yeah,
So
but that doesn't mean
he
he
doesn't
wouldn't take his
opinion doesn't
advice.
count. His
That
opinion
doesn't mean
doesn't count.
that doesn't mean he wouldn't take his advice if he felt like he needed it to justify his move, which again doesn't have to be successful, doesn't even have to be voted on the Senate side. All he's got to do is blame it on the caucus and bring it up for a vote, and they will get the prerequisite number of votes, and probably not a lot more than that. But the caucus could give enough coverage to enough moderates and still sideline Protasewicz. I'm not cheering for it, but I'm preparing for it.
And you're betting on it? You said better than even money is what you're telling me.
Well, your money's no good here, Don.
Yeah, fair enough. A gentleman's wager. I just want to hear it, man. I just want to hear it.
I would say it's 51-49 impeachment tomorrow morning.
All right. We'll find out. Can't come soon enough.
Let's turn our attention to the national speakers race, because there is no Speaker of the House, and that means the House can't do anything constitutionally. They're constipated, let's say, Dom. Well, the next speaker, like the last one, equivocates on the 2020 results, according to Philip Bump over at the Washington Post. Here's what I mean. Rep. Ken Buck, a Republican from Colorado, had a question for the 2 Republicans leading the race to succeed, Rep. Kevin McCarthy. Who won the 2020 election? That's not really how it was phrased. Political source said the closed-door meeting, where it was offered as thus: Did Donald Trump win the 2020 election? But that was the gist. Buck was asking the potential next leader of the House whether he would side with reality Trump lost or the barrage of fraud and theft that Trump has been so relentless about presenting. Now, House Majority Leader Steve Scalise, who won the informal vote for the role on Wednesday morning, and Rep. Jim Jordan apparently chose the barrage. But then the majority of the Republican caucus did too on January 6, 2021, when it counted. Since this was a closed-door meeting, it's not clear exactly how Scalise and Jordan tried to thread that needle, Dom. But Politico's Olivia Beavers reported that some Republicans interpreted Scalise and Jordan's answers as equivocating on the validity of Trump's loss, with at least one saying that the two tried to have it both ways.
Oh, you kidding me? You kidding me? So they're gonna say, yeah, well, he probably lost, but we want to still continue to fundraise on the fact that he got stolen. I mean, really, this is the Republicans vying for leadership.
Dominic, again, this isn't really surprising. CNN polling has consistently shown that most Republicans in the U.S. think that Joe Biden wasn't legitimately elected in 2020, with a third of Republicans saying there's solid evidence he wasn't. Here's a little fact check for you. There isn't. That evidence does not exist, but more from this. More to the point, the bulk of the caucus each man hopes to lead voted to reject the electors submitted by Arizona and or Pennsylvania in the wake of the riot at the Capitol. After the riot, that is despite a number of Republicans leaving and joining the House in the intervening 2.5 years. Analysis of the considerations of those states' electors showed that more than half the existing Republican conference was in the House on January 6, 2021, and adopted to reject the submitted slates.
More than half.
More than half
of the existing Republican conference.
Dominic, then as now, there was no justifiable cause for turning away electors committed to Biden. But then as now, there was a perceived political benefit to doing so. Legislators like your buddy, Senator Ted Cruz, tried to argue the opposition to recognizing the state's electors was simply performative. But it was obviously a SOP to Trump's insistence that the election was stolen. By the way, Dom, it was not. And most of the conference then voted to reject one or more state electors. Most of them won re-election in 2022. And even pouring a bunch more Republicans into the House didn't sufficiently water down the pro-elector rejection majority. Dom, they still believe it. And the majority of the House still voted to reject the outcome of the 2020 election. Of the Republican caucus, that is.
Philip Bump goes on to write, among those who voted to reject both states' electors were McCarthy, Scalise, and Jordan. So not only is it not a surprise that the candidates for the speakership would waffle on the legitimacy of the 2020 election, given the views of the conference, it's not surprising given their own past actions. It's useful to note, too, that the speaker election may come down to the votes of the most conservative or most right-wing Republican members. That's what happened in January when McCarthy's bid for the position required 15 rounds of votes. If hard-right legislators are the swing faction again this time, they're likely to be more insistent that the speaker candidates toe the Trump line in 2020. Of the 1/5 of the Republican conference that is least conservative, about 4 and 5 didn't vote to reject the electors, including new members who didn't vote on the issue. Of the most conservative 5th, 3/4 voted to reject the electors from one or both states. On Wednesday afternoon, Buck was asked about his question and the responses from Scalise and Jordan. Now, here's what he said. If we don't have the moral clarity to decide whether President Biden won or not, we don't have the moral clarity to rule this country, period.
I agree with him.
If that is true, it is perhaps useful to note that the caucus has been wishy-washy on Biden's election since well before January of this year. Philip Bump writing at the Washington Post.
Pretty sad.
That's
pretty
pathetic.
sad.
It's pathetic. It's pathetic. And I got to tell you, I believe it's more likely that some of these folks are making the political calculation to say it was stolen, stop the steal, because that's what their voters want to hear. That's what motivates the fundraising, at least on the small dollar part of it, right? So whether or not they're smart enough to know or believe that no, as indicated here, that they kind of maybe said it was legitimate, but that doesn't help them in their conference, right? So they're making the political calculation to say it for political reasons, and this is just it's beyond disarray. It's a disservice. It's immoral. It's wrong. What are you trying to do to this country, man? You think something was stolen? I can't believe that you would think that Trump would have won the election. I mean, think about where we were during that election. Of course, the pandemic, the economy's in the tank. Donald Trump, just being Donald Trump, adding on top of things that he's already done. He started planting that seed corn a long time ago, like February, perhaps, even before the election. He's saying things like, well, if we have, everyone gets a ballot or you get in the mail, well, Republicans are never going to win another election again. He knew the headwinds that he had. He knew, as part of the reason he was not forthcoming with the American people as he was with the Washington Post reporter about how bad it was, because he knew it would affect his election. He tried to downplay it, and he got it. Apparently almost died. But you're going to tell me that you think that in that environment, with Donald Trump being Donald Trump, the economy being what the economy was at the time, the pandemic raging, the division in this country, and you Republicans could be out there thinking somehow, some way that Donald Trump, people wanted Donald Trump, people wanted more of that? What? Why would you think that?
Well, I would point out to you, Dom, the margin still came down to what? About 11,000 votes in Georgia, about 21,000 in Wisconsin. These were not massive margins despite the political climate. And I would question, you talk about the politics, maybe they're just playing the game. Well, you could call this simple political expediency, but I would say perhaps they're trying to put in place a plan to more effectively steal the vote or steal the election in 2024. And I would say look at the impeachment efforts against the Wisconsin Elections Commissioner Administrator, Megan Wolf. Look at what they're doing in the state of North Carolina, overriding the veto of Roy Cooper, the governor there. And this is not for the betterment of the voters, not to make it more accessible. This is to control the mechanisms and perhaps push out the competent people that currently administer the safe and fair elections. They're stealing 2024. If we don't watch them, come back, more devils. Tell you when your messages are working and put cash in your register. So invest your ad dollars to reach our raving Madison and Dane County fans, or affordably reach the whole state, Chicago, Minneapolis, and our nationwide stream audience today. The Devil's Advocates can be the voice of your business, hold special events at your location, interview your staff for satisfied customers to lift your business. Contact us today, Crute at darnwy.com. That's Crute at darnwy.com.
Weather in a Moment is brought to you by Chad's Design Build, building a better world one remodeled home at a time. Reach out today by going to chadsdesignbuild.com to learn more. Again, that's chadsdesignbuild.com.
Here's your Mad Radio forecast. A frost advisory begins at 1 a.m. early tomorrow morning and continues until 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. Partly cloudy this afternoon with daytime highs approaching 58. Winds out of the northwest, 8 to 15 miles an hour. Clear skies tonight, lows dip down to about 36. Mainly clear skies tomorrow, high of 60. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Derek.
Kicking ass and taking names since the Wisconsin Uprising, the Devil's Advocates.
And we're back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Phone lines, hope you can join us at 844-967-2789. Make sure you stick around. James Causey from the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel going to join us at 5:30.
Don, we do have some sound from Scalise, but we're talking about the insurrectionist tendencies, the conspiracy QAnon caucus of this entire Republican House, man. More than half. But Mike Lindell, he's the guy that did the cyber ninja thing. Your buddy Gableman went out, right, on taxpayer dollars to a cyber symposium. Well, bad news. Mike Lindell is on a street corner begging at this moment, Dom. Mike Lindell begs for donations after declaring he's lost everything. He's lost everything, Dom. Sad news. MyPillow CEO Mike Lindell is pleading that he's in the poorhouse. It's soliciting for charity to help him pay his mounting legal bills. On Wednesday, the bedroom accessory tycoon.
How
about lumpy pillow tycoon? And 2020 election denier is fending off defamation lawsuits by voting machine companies. Here is what the statement says from Lindell. That's what it's all going for, not for anything else. Not for crack or anything.
No, not at all.
Lindell said on the streaming platform, Lindell TV, urging viewers to essentially dig in their pockets and sofas for even $5 a month to support the Lindell Offense Fund. Is that so he can offend people? That's being reported by Newsweek. Lindell told the outlet that he intends to put all his focus and energy to secure our elections while stressing the importance of preserving hand-counted ballots over electronic voting machines. He also expected to put the funds to use in a bid to help bankroll Shasta County suit against the state of California after Governor Gavin Newsom signed a bill into law that places limits on local government's capacity to count ballots. Still got money for a lawsuit, though. Dom, his public appeal for cash comes off the decision by his legal team seeking to quit the chief executive client, claiming they're owed millions of dollars in unpaid bills and expenses in his fight to defend defamation lawsuits filed against him by Smartmatic and Dominion voting systems. If they'd only skipped the avocado toast and the Starbucks, Dom, both companies are taking Lindell to task for attempting to impugn their reputations as he paraded around contesting the 2020 presidential is rigged against ex-president Donald Trump. Now, isn't that exactly what the entire Congress, or at least the vast majority of the Republicans in the Congress, isn't that the assertion they're making to this day?
Well, because they're believing people like Mike Lindell. And you know, I was blows my mind. Everyone, you know, I talk about the BS meter. Where's your BS meter? As soon as this guy popped up onto the national scene, I thought to myself, who the hell is this guy? Why are we forced to cover him? Why is he giving advice to the president? Same thing with the Kraken lady. What kind of crackpot people are rolling around in the White House right now? I mean, it's an absolute embarrassment. It's poor judgment, certainly. But there is some hope, Crute. We talked about Ken Buck. I'll throw this on other quickly. From Axios. Rep. Ken Buck, a Republican from Colorado, said he voted present during the GOP's internal speaker nomination poll because neither House Majority Leader Steve Scalise nor Rep. Jim Jordan would clearly say if they believe the 2020 election was legitimate. Now, Republican Rep. Ken Buck has been very critical of late of the wackadoodle Republicans in the House, man. And I commend him for that. You know, I rip on Republicans a lot. Well done, Ken Buck. Yes, of course. Though Scalise ultimately won the Republican Party nomination, he may fail to get the 217 votes needed to clinch the gavel if he can't win over holdouts like Buck. A little bit more from the Axios. Buck said he believes Scalise and Jordan could not publicly say the election was legitimate because they would pay a political penalty in doing so. Along with not answering his question on the 2020 election, Buck also said he is also concerned over Scalise's lack of details on the upcoming spending bill and his failure to commit to holding a vote funding for Ukraine. Buck said that during Wednesday's vote, Scalise received 113, Jordan 99. He said he and 2 other Republicans voted present, that's 3, while 8 votes were cast for other candidates, that's 11. Buck said he believes Scalise currently faces 7 Republicans who are strongly opposed to his leadership, while 7 others, including him, remain undecided. It is now expected that Scalise will meet with all 14 representatives in an attempt to win their vote.
We've got some Scalise sound. Let's play a little bit because you wouldn't want to miss out on this. The perhaps future Speaker of the House, Steve Scalise. This vote's important. Cut 1.
It's really, really important that this Congress get back to work. We select a speaker, go to the House floor, get to 218, and then get the House working again.
What's the first order of a Scalise Congress? Cut 2.
The first order of business under Speaker Steve Scalise is going to bring a strong resolution expressing support for Israel. We've got a very bipartisan bill, the McCall-Meeks resolution, ready to go right away to express our support for Israel.
More from perhaps future Speaker, definitely David Duke without the baggage, Steve Scalise. Keep playing it.
We need to make sure we're sending a message to people all throughout the world that the House is open and doing the people's business.
Is it?
Is that what you call it? Is that when most of your folks don't believe that Biden won a legitimate election, even though Trump's guy said it?
I want to hear cut number 5, Steve Scalise. This will get solved amongst the Republicans inside the family, Dom. Cut 5.
The conversations we've been having with my colleagues over the last few days leading up to this show that there's a resolve that we need to get back to work. There's a lot of business to take care of.
And eventually we'll get around to voting for something or someone. Maybe. The Republican Party's in disarray, Dom.
TikTok, man. Oh, my goodness. Why doesn't Ken Buck run for Speaker of the House? You know what I mean? Come on.
I hear Nancy Pelosi's available.
Hakeem Jeffries would do a fine job. Ken Buck, get a few of your buddies and a couple of the moderates, and let's do some real business.
What about Mike Lindell? He could use it as a fundraising platform. You don't have to serve in the House to be Speaker of the House. Folks, come back with us. More Devil's Advocates. James Causey from the Journal Sentinel talking misleading CRT ads right here in Wisconsin.
Hello, James. Can you hear me there?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Hello. Thank you so much for joining us here today.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. Yeah, you're coming through just good there. So, yeah, we will be coming back at 33 on the dot there. Okay. And this first segment will be going until 45 on the dot. So,
sounds good.
All right. Well, we'll be going. That's just for that one segment. I believe we'll be going a little bit longer than that as well.
Okay.
But that's just that first segment there. Will be going that long.
Okay.
Yeah. Any questions for me? You're sounding good coming through here. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can. No questions.
All right. Awesome. Then I'll just turn off your mic. We'll be back in a few.
Okay.
I would have gotten away with it. I would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for those meddling devil's advocates.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show, the Wednesday Happier Happy Hour. It gets better right now, Dom. We got a fine guest. He's joining us. He is James Causey with the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. James, welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show.
Hey, thanks for having me back.
Thank you, James.
Well, we appreciate you doing so, sir. I'm sure, like myself and many that are listening to the show right now, you've probably seen the anti-CRT ads that are running in the state of Wisconsin. And I saw this ad, and it seems, harmless at first. Father and a daughter, and they're talking about all people should get along. We don't need CRT is sort of the sentiment behind this ad, but we're not really sure who's behind this ad, sir. So let's start there. Have you seen the ads, and what was your impression when you did?
Yes, I've seen the ads. I mean, you can't miss it. If you turn on the TV, it's on all the time, especially during sports, where they really try to capture a large segment of the audience. So yeah, you can't miss it. And when I first saw it, the very first time I saw it, it was actually doing a Packers game, Packers-Bears game. And when I saw it, I thought it was a spoof. I didn't believe it at first. And so I actually used my DVR to rewind it. And I can't believe this. And so when I did the rewind, I actually used my phone to capture it. And I posted it to my social media page, and I wanted to know what people thought about it. And I got all kinds of responses from that post.
Well, I bet you did. The ad paints critical race theory as seeking to divide people by race. And that is what is portrayed there. It also utilizes some video of a Milwaukee teacher who's in an African-American immersion school, and she's doing a pledge of sorts, and they use this pledge out of context to seemingly make this point that CRT is bad. And what was your impression of the misleading use of a Milwaukee teacher?
Well, I think she has a lawsuit where she could sue because, first of all, she didn't agree to be in a commercial. Milwaukee Public Schools and no public schools teach CRT. So the fact that we're trying to portray what she did as critical race theory is a lie. And to paint her in this vein without her permission and to use that clip of her out of context, that's wrong in itself. And to even go even further, the young man in the video, Corey, he's a TikTok guy. He's an influencer. And he actually posted this video that we see of him and his daughter 2 years ago. But the people who wanted to put the CRT commercial together contacted him and wanted to see if he would agree for them to use his likeness or use his video in their commercial. And he agreed to it, and he instantly became famous overnight. Unfortunately, they didn't contact Angela, the teacher, and they just used her clip, and it was taken out of context. I mean, she teaches at a school where I believe it's like 98% African-American students who go there or more. And the school uses the Pan Am Pledge of Allegiance, but they also use the traditional Pledge of Allegiance, which they did not show in the ad. And this is just to paint a picture and try to show her in a bad light and try to, further push this anti-CRT movement.
Folks are listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. James Causey, columnist for the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, wrote up a piece recently. And James, thank you for doing so. And your perspective is so important. I see this ad, I'm like, the same kind of thing. It's like, oh, that's cute. People talking about getting along, and what a great introduction. But it seems the whole thing's a lie, man. The whole thing seemed to be presented as a lie. It's not like critical race theory is being taught in grade school or high school, right? That's not happening.
Right. It's not being taught. And my question is this, you know, why wouldn't we want our young people to be more educated on race and race relations than we were as adults?
Right.
Think about that, because we failed at race relations. And when you really think about it, adults have done a piss poor job at talking about race amongst each other and among people who don't look like us, and having real conversation and making real headway towards improving race relations. We just don't do that. And so why would we not want our kids to be better than us when it comes to talking about race and having real conversations about race and racism and the impact of race and racism? The only people who would be against that is people, in my opinion, is people who want to continue race and racism the way it is. And I think if we do that, we're going to be looking back at ourselves another 20 years, 30, 40 years from now and wonder, why did we allow this to happen?
The commercial doesn't define CRT, right? It doesn't get in. I mean, there's a lot of nuance. I mean, the whole thing is just offensive to me, James. I'm sorry, man. And I remember, years and years ago when I first heard about, systemic and institutional racism, my gut visceral reaction was, wait, what? What? I get racism in individuals and in people, but we're talking about, systems and policies and institutions. And my first reaction was, you got to be kidding me. But of course, upon reflection and, getting a little bit more education, oh my God, yes, you can't go from, the slavery and Jim Crow to what we were and just, flip a switch and think like all of a sudden everything's, it was all wiped out and we're all good and we're all equal now. But I get the feeling that whoever's supporting it and pushing these kinds of their ads want to, downplay it. Racism doesn't exist, James. We had a black president. How dangerous, really, for real. I mean, how dangerous do you think that is? Because if someone thinks that people are going to go along and say, well, we fixed all the problems, we don't even have to look at that now. Well, that's when it starts creeping back up.
Yeah, well, I mean, think about it. I mean, you could getting upset is one thing, but doing something about it is another thing. I think we're past the point of just being upset that this ad is out there, and we need to move to action and explaining to people why this is dangerous and why not talking about race in this authentic form is bad for us. Like most people don't understand how most systems and institutions are rooted in race and racism. I mean, if I could share one story with you, I remember a long time ago, I interviewed the detective who interviewed Jeffrey Dahmer. 8 straight hours after they brought Jeffrey Dahmer in, the serial killer. This is a white guy, white detective who had been on MPD's force for quite some time, and he went on to go teach at the University of Wisconsin, Milwaukee. He wrote a book, and he wanted me to edit the book. So we met and we talked, and I wanted to talk to him about crime and statistics across this country. And he said, James, I know what the statistics show. I know that more whites commit crimes than blacks. It's just because there's more white people. But when I close my eyes, James, and I think of a criminal, I think of someone who looks like you, a black guy with dreadlocks, big guy, and he said that's what I picture in my mind when I think of a criminal. That's a problem. I had on a suit that day. I was dressed to the nines, and I was like, wait a second, you interviewed a serial killer who confessed to you about the most brutal crimes ever recorded and probably some of the worst crimes ever. And when you think of a criminal, you think of someone who looks like me, that's a problem right there. And it goes to show you how racism is intertwined in everything from media to commercials to movies to police forces to educational institutions. It's all in there. And we just have to dissect it, because if we don't change it, it's just going to continue and get worse. And then we get blind to the fact that we don't even see it and recognize it.
Folks, you're listening to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. We got a fine guest. He is columnist James Causey from the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. Appreciate you sticking around, James. Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty. They're behind a lot of the litigation that's against affirmative action or the recognition of race in any sort of financial grant or whatever for college kids, etc. And we hear this claim that, we're now a post-racial colorblind society, and they always quote Martin Luther King Jr. but we see specifically the contention over DEI, state funding for the university system. And we've got Republican lawmakers coming out and say, if you fund DEI, we're gonna punish the entire university system. No raises for anyone. Well, what's wrong with diversity and inclusion? That's what the students tell the faculty they want on the UW campuses. But this seems just like blatant racism to me, James. Am I wrong about this at all, sir?
It's not. It's not just blatant. It's racism. It's racism at its core, and most people don't recognize that. Because again, why would we not want to be more educated on race and race relations? I just don't understand. In this country in 2023, we're still having an argument and still debating on whether or not diversity is important to us or not. We know diversity is important. We know when we have a group of all white men, or even if we just have a group of all black men talking about a subject, it makes more sense if we include women, if we include a different race involved in this, if we just have better communication so we don't have blinders on when we come up with solutions. The problem with a lot of our issues is that we don't have enough people of color in the mix when it comes to things, even in the media. And I have to criticize us as well. There's not many black reporters in media today. So it's hard for those voices in a lot of these issues to rise to the top because we just don't have many people that look like me reporting on the news. And so sometimes you get the sensational type of stories. And sometimes I was even sent my wife sent a letter to Fox 6 because 2 weeks ago on a Friday, we were watching the news at 10 o'clock news. In I kid you not, the first 19 minutes of the 30-minute broadcast was all negative news about black people. It was talking about a high-speed chase, a shooting. They talked about Wisconsin Most Wanted which was a black guy. And when they ran out of negative things to say about Milwaukee and black people here, they went to another state and found something to talk about negative. And it featured somebody of color. So it makes you wonder, why is all of this happening? When they did finally come back with positive news, it was their Hot Shot segment where they used a white girl who's in high school who's a tumbler. And they used her as the positive story of the day. That has to stop. We have to stop this foolishness and buffoonery because it's ridiculous. And if people can't see this, and I think because we see it so often that we get so used to it and passive to it, we don't even understand what it's doing to us, but it's affecting our brains. There needs to be a Harvard study on this for us to really truly understand it.
James Causey, I tune into a lot of right-wing talk radio in this state. It's overwhelming, especially in the city of Milwaukee. A couple of dominating outfits there. And they often say that policing changed after George Floyd. And they basically said, if I believe their hosts that, police officers are handcuffed, they can't do their jobs now. And now crime is rampant. It's an ongoing narrative, but James, I want to get your opinions of that narrative.
Well, according to a report that just came out today from MPD, Milwaukee Police Department, crime is actually down like a double-digit points from this time last year. So I don't know if that's true. But if we go back and actually look at it, is policing really better? Why do we celebrate when police and community people work together? It seems like that's always celebrated in the media as a great thing when we know that should take place all the time anyway. I think we still have a long ways to go, especially when it comes to addressing racism within the police department. That's why we have Driving While Black. That still continues, but it won't change overnight. It's going to take some time.
James Causey, real quick, last minute, the Be Good to Kids LLC. They're the ones funding the ad. They're not telling us who their funders are. How do we counter this in the next 45 seconds, sir?
We got to keep talking about it. I mean, when you know something is wrong, share my story for one. Keep talking about it, have conversations around it. And what we could do as individuals, if look at your circle of friends. If you don't have if everybody looks like you, that's probably a problem, and you may be part of the problem. So include people who don't look like you.
James Causey, thanks for joining us. Hopefully you perceive us as friendly friends. You can be a friend of the Devils. James, thanks for coming around. Columnist James Causey from the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Stick around.
Thanks, James.
More Devil's Advocates. Your phone calls could be next. 844-967-2789.
From 2 till 5 p.m. for an Invisalign open house. Find out details about the process and have your questions answered. Call West University Family Dentistry at 608-238-6244, 608-238-6244, or log on westuniversityfamilydentistry.com.
It's the most competitive sport for all to enjoy, and Milwaukee is even the capital for it. It's bowling, and the oldest bowling alley is in Wisconsin. Holler House is home to the two oldest sanctioned lanes in the U.S. and are still made of the wood installed in 1908. The building on West Lincoln in Milwaukee looks the same. Musicians Joe Walsh and Jack White have thrown a ball down those 115-year-old lanes. Now, can you guess the tradition that continues here to this day? A hot beef sandwich, just 25 cents. The pins still set by people, swear, and you're tossed out. The answer coming up. The fifth and sixth generations run Holler House, so some odd history does remain, like bras hanging from the rafters. The alleys have even been featured in the Wall Street Journal and Sports Illustrated. So what's your guess about the continuing tradition? It's the pins still being set by people. No machines here. These stories make it a true slice of Wisconsin. I'm Terry Barr for the Civic Media Radio Network.
Here's your Mad Radio forecast. A frost advisory begins at 1 a.m. early tomorrow morning and continues until 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. Partly cloudy this afternoon with daytime highs approaching 58. Winds out of the northwest 8 to 15 miles an hour. Clear skies tonight, lows dip down to about 36. Mainly clear skies tomorrow, high of 60. For Civic Media.
Occupy didn't start on Wall Street. It started on our street. The Devil's Advocates.
Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Our last segment of the day. Time flies when you're having fun. But if you got something to say, hit us up. 844-967-2789.
And thank you to our most recent guest, a fine one, James Causey from the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, a fine columnist we'd like to think of, friend of the Devil's Advocates.
Yeah, he's been around a few times, been a while. So I love to see James always. He's a good dude.
You know what? It doesn't take much to be a friend of the Devil's Advocates. You just got to come around.
Right.
And we're coming to you. We're coming out to the public. We're going to party at the Jade Monkey next Tuesday, October 17th. Live broadcast, plenty of fine political guests, and then come out and make some friends from some people who aren't just like you. Because no one's just like me, Dom. I'm unique. Uniquely super cool. And
Yes.
I'd look forward to meeting you. Less so, Dom, but you, I'd look forward to meeting at the Jade Monkey. If you've never been there before, there ain't no party like a Devil's Advocates party. I'm just telling you. Late in the night.
And the Jade Monkey, Hawk and the crew, fine hosts, and a great place to go and hang out.
The coolest of all of Hawk's finer neighborhood bars, in my humble opinion. The Jade Monkey, always the best parties at the Monkey. They're all good, but that one's the best.
Where I got my Drink Local shirt, man, my Jade Monkey t-shirt. So come on down, have some drinks. We'll do a live broadcast. We'll hang out, talk some politics, talk a little trash, have some fun. Join us. It'll be what, next Tuesday, right? Next
The
Tuesday?
only Madison stop on the Fall in Love Hometown Tour 2023 Diamond Crew partying in your hometown. But the only stop we're making in Madison, at least at a bar, where you can come and party with us and, you know, do the political thing and party civically, all that kind of stuff. So next Tuesday, make a note of it. See you at the party. Dom, I'm sad to announce Donald Trump has found a loophole as a political and perhaps a legal defense.
I don't believe it.
Trump tells the court he had no duty to support the Constitution as president.
Didn't he, I'm sorry, but let me just stop for a moment. I think we were there at the inauguration, right? Isn't that what
we were indeed there?
Yeah, you place your hand on the Bible and you swear to uphold the Constitution, right? Is that literally creating a duty? I mean, you swore to it, right?
Dominic, former President Donald Trump is arguing to a judge in Colorado that he was not required to support the Constitution as president. That's being reported by Law and Crime. The argument came as he seeks to dismiss a lawsuit filed in the state by Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington. We reference them often. They're called CREW, seeking to have him disqualified from the ballot in the state under the 14th Amendment. The insurrection clause of the amendment prohibits those who have engaged in insurrection against the United States from holding a civil, military, or elected office unless a 2/3 majority of the House and Senate approve. But Trump's lawyers are arguing that the specific language of the Constitution argues that this requirement only applies to people in office who are bound to support the Constitution. And the presidency is not one of those offices. Here's their quote, Dom. They told the judge this. The presidential oath, which the framers of the 14th Amendment surely knew, requires the president to swear to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution, not to support the Constitution. This is a legal defense? This is your not. Of course, we didn't participate in an insurrection against the United States.
No, not that.
You're nitpicking. You're splitting the infinitive to claim, well, protect and defend, but not support the Constitution. Here's more, Dom. Because the framers chose to define the group of people subject to Section 3 by an oath to support the Constitution of the United States and not by an oath to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution, the framers of the 14th Amendment never intended to apply it to the president. Maybe they could not conceive of a circumstance where the president of the United States would turn against his own country. But, now there's precedent.
The former president has already tried to remove the 14th Amendment case to move it to a federal court, but the motion was denied. Other lawsuits are trying to disqualify Trump on the same grounds in other states, including Minnesota. However, these cases face obstacles, chiefly that the 14th Amendment doesn't lay out a clear enforcement mechanism, according to experts. But I would say, we're a pretty intelligent people. We can come up with a mechanism. And if you're telling me that support is not equal to preserve, protect, and defend, I could hear you there. I understand. But it seems to me that the level of support is lower than preserve, protect, and defend. You know what I mean? If you're going to support it, you support it. But if you don't preserve, protect, and defend, you are literally not supporting it. You know what I mean? What? And way to throw the Constitution under the bus. Donald Trump, Republicans, Donald Trump attorneys, do you support the Constitution? Do you think you should, as president, do more than just support the Constitution? Do you think that the presidential oath to swear to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution amounts to supporting the Constitution? I mean, give me a break.
Dom, we've got a fine guest coming on Friday. He is former U.S. Attorney James Causey to talk all things Trump legal. Oh, yeah. But I got a little bit of an update here for you, Tom.
Well, we've kind of not gone there in a while.
Well, let me go there.
We got 2 minutes. Hit me up, man.
It was a numbers day in Manhattan court deciding the fate of the Trump organization with staffers from Deutsche Bank on the stand to talk about their experience overseeing Donald Trump's loans, according to ABC News. And one of the details they revealed is that in 2014, Trump desperately wanted to buy the Buffalo Bills football team. After Ralph Wilson passed away, he was the former owner. Attorney General Letitia James alleged that Trump grossly exaggerated his financial ability in his $1 billion bid to purchase the team, much in the same way he accused of doing with other such deals. Up to $800 million could have been financed by the bank, but it needed a competence letter to verify the deal.
Yeah.
Mr. Trump asked Deutsche Bank for the letter, the suit said, going on to say that Trump lawyer Jeffrey McConney met personally with both Deutsche Bank staffers to navigate the deal. Mr. McConney then certified as to Mr. Trump's liquidity on June 30th, 2014, and there had been no material decrease. But Mr. Trump's bid package, which was partially successful in that Mr. Trump did advance further in the bid process, included a letter indicating that based upon the bank's review of Trump's financial information, he would have the financial wherewithal to fund the purchase of the Bills football team. It didn't go through, though, Dom. Maybe it's his history of bankrupting the entire USFL.
And I wonder if Deutsche Bank, if they're going to get into, hey, you took a lot of, Russian mob money. Did you funnel any of that? Was that ever discussed, giving it to Trump? I'd just like to know.
I didn't know if foreign nationals could own U.S. football teams.
Nice.
Even ones like the Buffalo Bills. Thanks for listening, James Causey, our fine guest. Thank you, James. Don't forget, Maggie Dawn is next. And then the Empowered Caregiver with Liza Hellenbrand. Stick around. Keep it locked. Civic Media.